All right, everybody, we're going to open the meeting. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to the April 1st, 2024 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals, or ZBA. First, let me introduce the members of the ZBA present here this evening. Myself, Chairman Alan Donnelly. Vice Chairman, Mr. Carl Hinger. Secretary Elijah Hewling should be here momentarily. We'll count him absent for right now. Regular member, Commissioner, Mr. Richard Briggs is here with us this evening. Alternate member, Commissioner Larry Rushmeyer is supposed to be here. He should be here momentarily, but we'll count him absent for now. Alternate Commissioner member, Mr. Liam Ania is with us this evening. Our Zoning Enforcement Officer, Mr. Fran Lally, is with us this evening. And our always excellent and very professional Recording Secretary, Cassandra Varian, is with us this evening. Absent tonight, regular member, Commissioner Ms. Janet LaForgia. The current agenda can be found here at the table or on the town website under board meetings. When we begin the public hearing, I will call each applicant one at a time. When I call the property address, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and tell us about your appeal in detail. After, the secretary will read into the record any communications we received in favor or opposed to the application. The chair will then entertain questions of clarification from board members concerning the application. We will then hear from those who wish to speak in favor of the application, followed by those who are opposed. Following each side of the question, the applicant will be allowed to make concluding remarks. After we've gone through all the cases on the agenda tonight, we will close the public portion of this meeting and will deliberate an open executive session. You must have at least 4 affirmative votes to have your appeal granted. The final decision may be in the form of approved as submitted, approved with stipulations, or disapproved. All questions and comments must be directed through the chair. Please be assured that everyone will be given the opportunity to speak. However, the board is most interested in hearing factual information relative to the application, and in view of time constraints placed upon us, we ask your indulgence in not reiterating comments previously presented. You are welcome to stay until the end of the meeting or contact the land use office in the morning. Thank you very much. Okay. Commissioner Ania.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna seat you unless somebody shows up on everything tonight. Are you okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so all applications, that would be Z-24-8, Z-24-14, and Z-24-16.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I know you were at the last meeting, so are you good with reviewing the minutes and voting on them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so I will take a motion to review the minutes from the March 4th, 2024.
So moved.
Mr. White, I had a second. Is there any discussion?
I'm good.
I found one teeny tiny thing. How about you?
What were you thinking?
Okay, so on line 80, I'm gonna ask Commissioner Briggs if he remembers this, but this is how I remember it. Line 80, it's property, not the property owner. It says, Commissioner Briggs stated that the nature of the hardship is self-imposed and not specific to the property. The rest of the commission agreed. I remember it was myself, or Commissioner Briggs and myself, that stated that that was the nature. So I just wanted to add in Chairman Donnelly with that. Does that ring a bell to you, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have anything else? I don't have anything else at all. Okay, I take a motion to...
You good?
Me?
No, I didn't have anything bad.
You good?
Yes.
Okay. Take a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. First on the agenda, we have continued public hearings. And that is 10 Forest Trail, Z-24-8. That's James and Christina Delafield residents. Request for variance 3.5, that's 6-foot structure to the front lot line. With the applicant or proponent of the applicant, please come forward. State your name and address for the record, sir, and tell us about your appeal in detail.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, because there's 4 members, there's a form that they need to sign.
Oh, okay.
Agreeing to.
Yes,
only-
Mr. Delafield, currently, right now, we only have 4 members, which is a quorum, which is okay. If you agree to it, we can continue with the meeting, or if you'd like, we can postpone it until we have 5 members, because you're entitled to 5. It's up to you, sir.
I'm in agreement.
You're
Do I
okay
need
with
to
that?
sign that?
Yeah, do you mind?
You bet.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much.
So I'm looking to put a front porch on because the house was built in a direction where it gets no sunlight
Okay?
at the front door, so it's a huge icing problem. So all winter long, the sun never, ever sees that side of the house where the front door is. There's no overhang, no porch. So it's a safety issue. My mother-in-law lives with us. She's 95. So she needs to get to doctor's appointments and whatnot.
Thank you very much. Is that all, sir?
Yes.
Okay. And one thing I forgot to do is appoint a secretary. Commissioner Briggs, would you like to be the acting secretary for this evening, sir?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, is there any correspondence or last-minute correspondence on
Having
this?
just been appointed. Call for that question.
I don't think that there is, but I figured I'd double check with the secretary. 1 second, sir.
What was your name?
James Delafield?
We're good, no last-minute correspondence?
There is some correspondence, Mr. Chairman.
There is?
It should be right in the record.
Okay, I'll have the secretary read it. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Secretary.
Should I read this?
Yes, please. Please read it into the record.
Yeah, sure. So regarding variance for 118 Pocono Road, Marco, I can't quite read the name there.
You can spell it.
So Marco A. Souza and Manisa, also Souza, both last name, are in favor of the variance on 118 Pocono Road.
That Pocono
I
Road?
don't think this applies to me.
No,
Oh,
no.
is that the wrong one, Frank?
It had, it's in the wrong file then, yeah, I apologize.
Sorry, sorry, Mr.
Yeah,
Secretary.
no. It was in the file for 10 Forest Joe.
Sorry about that, Mr. Secretary. Okay, so I don't think we have anything to bring into the record, sir.
Yeah.
At this time, I'm going to ask any commissioners if they have any questions for the applicant. I have a couple.
Mr. Delafield,
Yes.
is part of the hardship that you have 2 front yards? Because it seems like, you know, it's on a corner there. Is that part of the issue why you need to build it in that area? Or?
I did
That's
notice
where
that.
the front door is. So I did a drawing with a marking of the structure and where the proposed porch is, if everyone wants a copy. And I discussed it with an architect. He suggested a certain size, so I'm applying for that size. So 6 feet seems to be about a minimum that,
Is that 40 feet I see on here? Is it 6 by 40?
What is the width of it, I assume?
yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Do you have any follow-ups on that? Mr. Vice Chair.
I think it's good.
Mr. Secretary.
So we're gonna put it on pillars, so.
Yeah, wait, oh, 1 second, sir. Mr. Secretary, do you have any questions for the applicant?
You said it's, is that the north side? What is the,
Yes, that's north, I guess it's north.
North, kinda east.
East,
northeast?
northeast.
You would think if it were northeast, you'd get, well, maybe not this winter though.
No, by the time the sun gets up, it's already past the corner of the house.
So if you got snow and stuff like that, it can melt
Yeah.
down and then it gets cold and then it
Yes,
freezes.
and it's 2-story over that front area, so it really never gets sun for about 10 feet out.
Okay.
And you're talking about,
But then the roof melts and everything dams,
Mhm.
you know, it's just a constant icing problem.
All set, Mr. Secretary?
I don't have any other questions.
I have just a couple of questions. Thank you very much for letting me go out and look at your property. Would it be okay if I pull it up on the GIS?
Sure.
Hopefully it comes up here on the big screen. My first question I have, if this thing comes up, is the existing porch you have right now is at 27 feet. Is that a pre-existing non-conforming porch now?
You're looking at the back deck.
No, I'm looking at, okay, if it says present dimension is 27, but the required is 30, so I'm guessing what you have now, is that correct, Fran? I'll ask you. It's at 27 feet now, required dimension is 30, so I'm guessing the existing one is already pre-existing non-conforming.
It very well could be,
The whole house is pre-existing non-conforming.
Okay. That was one of my questions I had for you.
Yes, so the entire structure is 3 feet, I think, into the,
Okay.
in non-conformance already.
Okay. You already answered my second question, that was the hardship in detail, I understand that, sir, the overhang, the sun, melting snow, and the ice and stuff like that. So it's safety, is pretty much the
Yes.
biggest thing. Another question, Fran. Fran, would 3483B, which is structure front yard, would that apply to this too, if we were to grant a variance?
No, no.
Don't worry about it?
no, it's attached to the house.
Okay. Another question I had, which Commissioner Ania brought up, was if we look at this, you technically have two, I don't know how much it applies to it, but you almost have 1, 2, 3 front yards, because you got Forest Trail going around both sides and Cottontail in the rear.
Right.
I did notice that. And then the last question that I have is, if we were to grant a variance today, I know that you're asking for 6 feet, but if it was, say, half or 3 or 4 feet, would you still be able to have your safety and stuff like that? If it was a little bit smaller, it's basically
Yep,
what
I
I'm saying.
understand. I don't know. I would think the minimum you would need would be 4 feet. I mean, to just be able to stand outside and be able to get down a couple of steps.
I got you. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's pretty much it. Anybody have any follow-ups? Do you have any follow-ups?
So based upon the normalcy of the house and the size of everything, the architect suggested this size.
Suggested the 6 rather than
Yes.
3, 4, or 5 or something
Right.
like that. I got you. But it still would be safe, and 4 feet, that's minimum you need for wheelchair and stuff, right? ADA?
Yeah.
I'm saying, okay. I think I'm good question. All right, at this time, I'm going to ask if there's anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this application.
I would.
You know you're in favor, sir. All right, hearing none. At this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone here that would like to speak in opposition to this application. Hearing none. Okay, sir, you have the concluding remarks.
We did our due diligence with all the neighbors, everyone, liked the idea of it as far as, it being an issue is like that. And, again, we discussed it with a qualified architect who designed the dimensions, and we're looking to remedy a safety issue.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Anybody have any last minute questions before we close the public hearing? Any last minute questions? No? I'll take a motion to close the public hearing for Z-24-8.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And moving on, the next application is, the next application we have
I'm
It's
sorry,
50.
am I dismissed?
Oh,
You vote
yes,
on
sir.
it?
Yes, sir.
What happens?
You're more than welcome to
We
stay.
call the office in the morning.
Yeah, or you can stay around, and
You
find out.
vote on
later
it later
tonight.
at a different
Yes,
time?
no, tonight, this evening.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
it's up
call
to
the
you.
office.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
Thank
thanks
you
very
for
much.
coming, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. Okay. All right, public hearings, 50 Wiskaneer Road, Z-24-14. That's the Franklin Alvarez residence, request for variance 3.5, and that is a 10-foot structure to the front lot line. With the applicant, or proponent of the applicant, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and tell us about your appeal in detail.
Right.
And first, I need you to sign this form if you want to go forward with the 4 members, or you
Yes,
can wait
I'll
till the
I'll
next
re-explain
meeting.
this. Right, you're always entitled to 5 members, but we only have 4 this evening.
Okay.
And all 4 will have to vote in affirmative.
Yes, all 4 of us would have to vote yes in the affirmative. You're okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay. He's fine.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Thank you. Please come forward, state your name and address for the records, and tell us about your appeal in detail.
Go ahead.
My name is Franklin Alvarez. I'm from Wiskaneer, 50 Wiskaneer Road.
Welcome to the zoning board of appeals, sir.
So we're trying to like put a second story in the house. Just we like to improve our house. Also because the bedrooms are so small in the pre-existing house. So actually they're very small bedrooms. So we don't have like master bedrooms or that. So we're just trying to put like all the bedrooms in the second floor, and the first floor is gonna be like dining room, in the living room, and the office. That's all.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Can I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Julia.
Name and address for the record.
It's 50 Wispany Road, and this is my husband. So I also want to say that we bought the house. It's a very small house, and we think, you know, like I love Brookfield. I've been trying to move in here since I was little. So we found this house, but we need to improve it. I have 3 kids, and we need some spacing for the kids as well. And right now, the house is very small. And we're trying to build a second floor to put the bedrooms upstairs so that we can have like a decent dining room and a living room downstairs. So that's the only thing.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Mr. Secretary, do we have any correspondence to read into the record?
Just looking to see.
Should I have him read that email from Amy, Fran?
It's from,
What
this one.
What email?
It's one question I asked her, but don't worry about it.
Oh,
It's just a question that I had. It's kind of correspondence, but it's not. in
I'm not finding any.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Is there any last minute correspondence?
no, there's none, no.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to ask if there's any commissioners that have any questions for the applicant.
Mr. Alvarez, I saw that you stated the property is pre-existing non-conforming. I wanted to check, is that correct? Because I saw the house was built in 1949 and...
Correct, prior to the zoning regulations. Yeah, the required front yard setback is 50 feet. His property is currently at 40 feet. So
What year was it again, zoning regulations took place?
67?
7.
Somewhere around there, yeah. So-
Yeah, anything older than that, it's pre-existing non-conforming.
This doesn't build
We are
forward
building
at all.
up. We're
Yeah,
not building to
it's-
the.
yeah,
It's
It's a
Yeah,
vertical,
not-
it's a vertical
It's
expansion of a
vertical, it's not
non-conforming.
expanding the footprint.
Expanding.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Secretary? do you have any
John,
questions?
what is the actual variance then?
So, basically, they want to put a second story
Right.
on the existing house for right now.
But it
which
doesn't
would be-
alter the setback, so,
Yeah,
what's the nature of the variance?
it's already 10 feet too close.
It's already 10 feet,
The
yeah.
fact
It's a
that
ver-
there's an existing,
Home, existing
Non-compliant.
structure that's
Right,
already,
right.
yeah, and it's
Right.
pre-1967.
Pre-existing non-conforming
And
home.
it's already there, so they just want to go on the second floor, but it's already 10 feet too close.
right,
So
right.
they want basically to build a second story on the house, I guess.
It's a vertical expansion of a nonconformity.
There you go.
Okay.
Any questions for me? All right. I have a couple quick questions. Thank you very much for letting me go out to your house. I drew a little map, so I'm gonna ask you to come over and tell me if this is fairly accurate, if you could, please. All right, it's pretty crude, but here's your house, right? And then right out from your house, you have your garage. I was most interested when I went over there to look at it, to check septic and also to check the distance between here and here. But, so you got your house right here, there's kind of gravel over the side, and then the driveway comes straight up to the road. I measure here, I don't know if you guys ever measured it, but from the edge of the house to the edge of the road, I came up with 62 feet. Your mailbox is a little bit further back. Does that sound kind of, sort of
Yeah.
close? Okay.
Yeah.
And then I also checked, because I wanted to find out if there was an as-built on the septic system, but I checked with the town sanitarian, Mr. Avery, and I guess he's working with you guys on a, pretty much a whole new septic system. Does that sound right?
Yes,
Ken?
it is, yes.
Yeah, you're doing in the process of soil test right now, but in the back of the house is where the septic's gonna be.
Yes.
So you're gonna have your tank, the D-boxes, the
Yes.
fields. You have a pretty big backyard, so you might wanna save, I'm guessing, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, save part of that in case you ever have to expand on the septic system or something. All right, that's pretty much, that's one of my questions. The next question I had was, the hardship in detail. I think I understand it, because it's really pre-existing, non-conforming, and it's not really 10 feet forward that you're going, you're already at that 10 feet, you just wanna put a second floor in the house, is that correct?
Yes, that's
Okay. Septic system. Oh, and I just wanted to read it into the record. So, I emailed the land use office, Amy got back to me, and I checked. 81 Pocono Road, you were upzoned during the regulation. Oh,
Wrong one.
Yeah, see, that one and the wrong one too. All right, forget it, I'm not gonna read that into the record. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right, that's in the wrong spot. Two things in the wrong spot tonight. All right. Any follow-up on that? Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone here to speak in favor of this application. Yes, sir? Please come forward, state your name and address for the
Come
record.
around or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
State your name and address for the record, and
Yes, sir. My name is Dan Guerra,
Mr. Guerra,
52 Rita Drive, New
welcome to the
Fairfield.
zoning board of appeals, sir.
Thank you, my first time, hopefully my last. I think it's reasonable what they're asking for. They're not increasing the nonconformity. I would say as long as the character of the house is sort of harmonic with the rest of the neighborhood, if, you know, they were looking for a 40-foot tall house and everything else is a single level ranch, maybe. But I think what they're looking for is not unreasonable. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Is there, at this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone else that would like to speak in favor of the application. Hearing none, at this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone here to speak in opposition to this application. Hearing none. Does anybody have any last minute questions or thoughts before we close the public hearing? You have the final concluding remarks, sir. Ma'am, either one, or both of you.
So, I just wanna make a house that is original for me and my kids. And, you know, the kids, they want space and we also want space, and that's basically why I just wanna do it. The house that we bought is too small for us, but the land is beautiful and the town is amazing. So we really wanna, you know, complete or start this project.
Thank you, Ms. Alves.
Thank you.
Mr. Alvarez, would you like to have any concluding remarks? Okay. Okay, does anybody have any last minute questions or comments? I have one little comment that I should have brought up when we were here before, but I did drive, I'm sure everybody else drove the neighborhood and looked around. The second story there, to me, would be in conformity with the rest of the neighborhoods as you're going down the road. Some are first floor, but there's plenty that have second floors. And I just wanted to say that before the public hearing closed. Okay? That's it. All right, I will take a motion to close the public hearing on Z-24-14.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Let me get that neato. All right. So we're moving on. The next application is going to be 81 Pocono Road, Z-24-16. Daniel Guerra of Sterling Properties, Connecticut, LLC, 52 Rita Drive, New Fairfield, for David Austin, 8529 Castle Creek Road, North Richard Hills, Texas. Request for variance 4.3A is an alpha. That would be a 10-foot structure to the front lot line. Would the applicant or proponent of the applicant, that's you, sir, please come forward.
Sure.
State your name and address
Sure.
for the record again. Tell us about your feeling detail.
Yeah,
You can come
absolutely.
right on up if you want, wherever you're comfortable.
Well,
sir.
the first guy stood there, so. Daniel Guerra, 52 Rita Drive, New Fairfield, Connecticut.
Welcome to the zoning board of
Thank you.
appeals, sir.
So, the nature of my appeal is,
You already signed the form?
He did.
Sorry for
I signed the
interrupting.
form and I actually have,
Okay. You're good with 4 commissioners?
yes.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
And for you, I do have a copy of the letter that was sent to the 101 Pocono Road. I think there was a discrepancy with Greg Fran with the address, but.
It's
I
all
have-
resolved.
Okay.
Yeah, it's resolved. I'll ask you about it, you can just hand in the record when we
Okay,
get to that point.
sure.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so we're looking for a variance to zoning regulation 4.3.A, dimensional requirement for minimum front yard setback. So we are looking for, the application says 10 feet. When I drew it out, it's actually 9 feet variance. So this is an I1 HO, I guess, zone, which requires a 50-foot front yard setback. And we are looking for a variance to push that back to 41 feet instead of 50 feet. So I apologize, I have lots of drawings here, but I figured the small copies that you guys get might not be sufficient. So 81 Pocono Road is just directly across the street, 2 properties south of the post office. So here's my plot plan. So it's kind of a long, narrow site. So here's Pocono Road, here's the railroad here, the post office is here, and we are standing over here. So the hardship, in terms of hardships, I would argue this might be a record setter here. This is a tough site. So we've been working on this site for about a year now. So what I did is I made an exhibit plan for the board. And what I did is I kind of color coded each of the hardships. So one thing that I couldn't really color code.
Is that this one,
that's
sir?
that
Sorry to
one.
interrupt.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yep. But I thought a bigger exhibit might be easier to read. So the primary hardship, we have an Iroquois gas easement that runs directly through the site, essentially cutting it in half. This is a town of Brookfield drainage easement, cutting it, again, kind of in half. And then we have significant wetlands on the property. So with wetlands, if you're not aware, there's also an upland review area of 75 feet, which we are also in. So when you take all of that into consideration, and then our standard property setbacks, what you're left with is this little tiny space of white out of a 5-acre site, 4.91 acre. Additionally, kind of hard in this plan, but the site slopes 30 feet from this northwest corner down. So it's a difficult site. So there's lots of hardships going on. So what we did is we actually were in full compliance with all zoning regulations.
You said were?
We were,
Okay.
we intended to be.
Okay.
And so we went to the inland wetlands because of the upland review. And right here, in this corner right here, we were disturbing 50 square feet of inland wetlands. And the Inland Wetlands Commission did not like that idea. So that's this plan here. So this is our original site plan. So full compliance with all Brookfield zoning regulations.
But it would be disturbing, okay. Gotcha, I'm following.
So, and I presented that commission with my civil engineer. So after the meeting, we met and per the Inland Wetlands Commission, they said, hey, maybe you can go to ZBA. You do have a hardship, let's see if we can just move the building a little. The question is, what's a little? How much do we need to move the building? So per the civil engineer, we have a retaining, because remember, there's grade change, so we have a retaining wall holding back this drive aisle from, essentially from the wetlands. So his answer to me, my civil engineer said, Dan, we need to move this back 15 feet. I'm only asking for 9. I didn't feel, or 10, I guess, on the application. It ends up being 9 on the drawing. I didn't feel comfortable coming to the commission, to this board, and asking for all 15 feet without trying to compromise and look at alternatives. So, what I presented for you folks on the next sheet that you have is sort of what I'm asking for. So this is the proposed site plan width.
Is that this one, sir? Sorry to interrupt you. Or the last
That's an older one.
This one?
Yes, that's the
Okay,
one.
all
Yep.
right. Make sure I
See
look
that
at the
one?
right one.
So basically, you'll know it's the right one because the middle building is smaller than the other two. So of the 15 feet, I sacrificed 5 feet of this building here. And the reason we only went with 5, you might just say, well, Dan, why didn't you go 15? There's always a financial implication to that, but really, this, kind of difficult to explain, this part of the development is at ground level. This road drops down 10 feet. So this is actually a 2-story building, but built into the hill. So if you're standing on Pocono Road, it appears to be 1 story, but you're actually driving downhill to this access aisle. Each building is 3 feet higher than one another to follow the contour of Pocono Road. So we're basically kind of stepping down 3 feet. So in talking with my civil engineer, he was concerned with this essentially a ramp right here turning too much if we were to shrink this building down to say 35 feet or whatever we needed. So that's where the 45-foot number came from. So I thought it was reasonable. We needed 15. I'm asking for 9. And I've dimensioned that out for you folks, and it's not 9 across the board. So at this corner, we would be 46.7 feet from the
So
road.
it's a little under 4.
Yeah, right.
4, yeah.
So right here, kind of in the middle, is where it's the worst. The proposed office building doesn't require any variance. This corner is 41, so it's not a consistent 41, and that's the proposed plan.
Do you mind backing up for 1 second,
course.
sir? And you know the part where you explained, you shrunk the little one and then you said the curve in or whatever? Could you
Yeah.
explain that one more time?
For sure, yeah, sorry, it's a little confusing. So each of these buildings steps in elevation 3 feet in height, which over a 25-foot dimension is actually quite a bit. It's the maximum that the zoning permits us to do. So it's a ramp. So the civil engineer was concerned having a ramp and turning direction too much. You kind of want, because this is a fire access lane, this is where tenants will load and unload their cars. So he was concerned with having a ramp and turning at the same time where tenants might be. So that was kind of the dimension that he gave us, was that, so you could kind of curve that ramp about 5 feet. Any more than that and could pose a visibility issue, so a safety issue.
For the back part of it?
For the back part. You could have a fire truck coming through, going up a ramp and turning, and there could be tenants loading or unloading right here, so that's kind of where that dimension came from. Does that answer?
So you're basically pushing it forward to widen that passage?
Yeah, well, the passage is gonna remain the same dimension. We're pushing it closer to Pocono Road to gain more space here, so that we're not disrupting this wetlands at all. So we're basically just taking the whole thing, right here's the wetlands, we were just touching it, and we're pushing it over so that we're no longer hitting those
Right,
wetlands.
so you're saying that the size of the passage dictates a certain minimum width, and that.
Correct. So this is 20 feet, this is the minimum that the fire
That would
department
encroach
wants.
on the wetlands unless you move it
Correct,
forward.
exactly.
Could you do me a favor and just put a dot on that disturbed, if you're allowed to draw on your
Absolutely,
own map?
I sure can.
Just want to see
Yep.
if that lines up with where I have mine.
Yes.
Okay. So that's pretty close to mine.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That's the disturbed.
Yeah, so
If
it's
you
just
had to
this
disturb
little,
it, would be-
exactly, it's right there. And to the Inland Wetlands Commission, that was basically, for all intents and purposes, a no-go. Even though we had all of our documentation, we had a soil scientist letter stating there was no impact. And they actually suggested I come here. That's why I'm here.
Thank you.
So, sure. Now, in terms of the harmony of the neighborhood and all that, there's a couple things going on here I think that help. Number one, we're proposing significant landscape screening between Pocono Road and the development. Now, this is the original plan, I haven't updated this yet, but the landscape concept is identical, whether we move it or not. So we have kind of like a decorative wrought iron fence with stone columns every 15 or 20 feet.
Height, sir?
I think they are
You don't have to be, sir.
6 to 8 feet, okay? And then we have all of this landscape screening. The building, additionally, we're in an I-1HO zone, but measured from Pocono Road, if you're on the road walking or driving, it's actually a single-story building, so we're not going up very high. So my feeling
What's your
is,
total height, sir?
I think we're at 15-ish feet. I'm not sure if I put that on the application.
I don't think I saw that.
That's from the front side.
From the front, exactly. So from the, measured from Pocono Road at the front, it's essentially a single-story building. I think it's a 4-pitch roof, so whatever that math works out to.
You just capped at 45 feet for that zone.
Right. Exactly. So we're a relatively short building.
30, is it 30?
HO, I think we can go taller.
Yeah,
Right.
45 for HO.
So we're not proposing a tall building and then asking to go closer to Pocono Road. We're proposing a single-story building. It's an attractive, kind of, these aren't great renderings, I'm sorry, but this is the best that my computer would print out. So, kind of harmonizing, we're not looking for an industrial warehouse appearance, we're looking for something like this, with significant landscape, a relatively short building, and the wrought iron fence. I don't think anyone would ever be able to tell the difference between, hey, that building is 50 feet or 41 feet. So that's kind of my position on the impact of the neighborhood.
Thank you, sir.
That's my last drawing.
Thank you very much.
This thing's
sir.
actually not that light.
All right. Mr. Secretary, do we have any correspondence to read into the record? So Dan, do we have any last-minute correspondence? You're just gonna double-check that, sir?
Yeah, sure.
No?
Okay. At this time, I'd like to ask if there's any commissioners that have any questions for the applicant. I have a couple.
I saw that the inland wetlands meeting, that it was the March 25th one, I believe, that we went to, and that they had tabled the application for the next meeting. Are they awaiting the decision of the ZBA on that, or had they already said that, because you said it was like 50 square feet of
Yeah.
wetlands that needed to be?
Yeah, they're not directly waiting for a decision from ZBA, but they're awaiting what am I going to do based on the outcome of this meeting?
Okay.
Are we going to continue? Because there is no rule that says you can't disturb the wetlands, it's just how much effort do you want to do, right?
We also had on March 11th with them as well, right?
I only had one.
I thought it was.
And March 25th, I'm sorry, it was March 11th, not the 25th. The 25th was like last
Okay.
week.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the
Okay.
11th. So, yeah, we can continue with the Wetlands Commission, but based on what I felt from that meeting, based on what my engineer felt from that meeting, it's going to be a very challenging, nearly impossible task to continue with the disturbance to the wetlands.
Did they seem confident that, if
They
you were to
did.
move it around?
They did. So to demonstrate that, they agreed that rather than have a public hearing for the inland wetlands, if we do not disturb the wetlands at all, there will be no public hearing, it'll just be a regular meeting. And they agreed to not have me have to hire a third-party soil scientist to review my soil scientist's work. So basically, they said, hey, Dan, please get this thing out of the wetlands, and things will look a lot better for everyone. And it was, you could tell her demeanor instantly, she was not pleased with the disturbance.
Chairman Rafani.
The chairman, yeah, yes.
Any other questions?
That's all.
Mr. Vice Chairman.
So just to clarify what you're saying, that there could be potentially some mitigating steps you could take to satisfy the wetlands, but it would be a much more difficult.
You could,
Cumbersome process.
the feeling I got and the feeling that and I don't do this often, my civil engineer does all the time. We left that meeting and he said, Dan, that was not a good meeting. This commission does not like disturbing wetlands. He made that very clear to me. And by her suggesting I come here, I think that also was quite telling.
Right.
To say, hey, Dan, get it out of the wetlands. Obviously, she didn't put that in writing, but that's, you know, certainly the feeling we got.
I think I'm good. It was very thorough.
Okay, I'm sorry for all the
presentation.
drawings, I didn't know,
No,
I know it's a big development, so I didn't wanna leave
I
anything.
had a couple questions going in regarding, like how you could shrink it more, but you already went over that with the curve and everything. So
Yeah, and
I'm
we really,
very-
we actually did start with 2 larger buildings, but the grade change as Pocono Road drives sort of south
Yeah,
led us to have 3 buildings, and each time you have 3, you have to separate that. So we've
Right.
given up as many square feet as really is practical.
I'm good.
I have a few questions for you,
Yeah,
sir.
sure.
And I may or may not pull it up on a GIS or Google Earth, so. I'll
Okay,
show you the time.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I have some questions on the inland wetlands meeting, which I watched a few times. But the first thing I'm gonna bring up that the Chairwoman Fox said, and that was the 3/11 meeting.
Yep.
So at 52 minutes and 30 seconds into it, she was speaking about prudent and feasible, this is Chairwoman Fox, alternatives that you could have. A couple of things that she mentioned there, and also about coming to us, was why not make the footprint of one or all of the buildings smaller, and you wouldn't need to disturb any wetlands. You kind of sort of answered that, but I wanted to see.
Yeah, we started off with over 50,000 square feet of, I guess, net area, right, because it's 2 floors. As we've run into hardships, the gas line, that comes into play, we shrunk the building. There's now a septic system on site because there's a moratorium on sewer connections, that shrunk the building. So we have given up as many square feet as practical. It does get to a point where then why develop anything ever, right? So I mean, we have considered all of her alternatives in terms of shrinking the building.
Okay. Next question on this is back to the same wetlands meeting. At 57 minutes and 11 seconds, Chairwoman Fox also suggested you could bring in another or submit another plan that creates a 4-to-1 replacement for filling in the 50 square foot of
Yep.
wetlands, which is like a 5 by 10.
Yep.
Did you do that, or did you think about doing it? And that would equal about 200 square feet.
Right, we did.
Of new
And I
wetlands.
talked to the engineer about that. He doesn't have the space anywhere. There literally is no other place to put those, she's talking about like fake wetlands, basically.
No,
So-
I
create
took it as
wetlands.
creating new wetlands.
Yeah.
So if we give you 50 square feet over here, you're creating,
There-
she was talking about a 4-to-1, so I
Yeah.
guess it's 200 square feet
Yeah,
roughly.
so
There's no place to.
I talked to the engineer, we have the, go back to the site plan. So the wetlands would have to be downstream of the development, because you can't pump the water into the wetlands. So you're kind of talking on this side, on the east side of the building.
Half over,
Right.
roughly half. a
Yeah,
mile,
exactly,
right?
yep. So here's our gas line easement, so we can't touch anything here. We have more wetlands.
Top right corner, is that the?
This is
east?
all, yeah, this is southeast.
Okay, so you don't need to create it because it's already there.
It's already there.
Yeah,
We have minimum parking that's prescribed by ZBA, so it's not like, hey, give up a parking
by
space.
zoning, you mean?
Sorry, by ZBA, by zoning.
It's okay.
Here's our septic system. You can't put the wetlands within a certain dimension of the septic
So leave
system.
it 75 feet.
We didn't create the need for a septic system, right? That was because of the moratorium. We have the world's smallest septic system design ever. It's like 10 feet long and that's it. This right here would probably be the only real estate that would be sensible to put created wetlands.
Okay.
This is our underground infiltration basin.
I have a quick question for you. The
Sure.
map that you gave us is not the scale, but that's the scale?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So give me the dimensions on that space if you could, roughly, you don't have to be exact.
Yeah, it's,
I mean, ballpark it.
I think it's 100 and, it's one of the prints I didn't
I
bring.
got one of these if you need it. It's 30-to-1, right?
Yes.
to create 200 square feet, you would need 10 feet by 20 feet, or something like that.
Yeah, so that's like 120 feet, give or take. But the entirety of this area, see this like round circle, this is our manhole for our underground infiltration basin. So all of the water from the development is captured and held in chambers that occupy this entire space. This is all upgrade, you can't really tell from the drawing, but this is 30 feet higher than it is down here, so you're not gonna put anything here. This is all wetlands in the upland review area anyway, so there really is no space. And I discussed this with the land use department, and she said that in her experience, creating new wetlands doesn't necessarily guarantee an approval by the board. It was just a suggestion from the chairwoman. It wasn't a
It
guarantee.
wasn't a, if you do this, it's a
Correct.
yes. But
Correct.
it
The
was
most-
if you come in front of us with a
Right.
plan, we'll look at it.
Correct, yep. So, again, wetlands are all here. This is our detention basin. You can't put the wetlands under asphalt, so it's kind of running out of real estate there.
Would it be fair to say, if it were possible and you had to create any wetlands, that is the only spot literally on your 4.91 acres that you could do it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Next question. You mentioned earlier, and this was also one of the questions I had for you, so this map, I think it's pretty good. You can just verify this with me. Is this the part where you would be disturbing?
Yes.
No one had you pointed
Yep.
on yours, so that looks pretty close right there?
Yep, you can kind of see there's almost a point to that red dashed line.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that would be the 50 square feet that you
Correct.
would technically have to disturb.
Yeah, and I talked to my engineer about that, because on a plan like this, you were looking at this tiniest little bit, and you're saying, how could that be? He's saying for construction, this is a 10-foot tall retaining wall. So you have to get equipment down here and work.
Gotcha.
Right, so that's the disturbance, it's not the actual finished product, it's going down there to, you have to build silt fence, you have to get a, you know, a man and a machine down there.
I think this is my last question, or
Okay.
second to last
Yeah.
question. So, and you answered it before, if you could just explain one more time, why not, if that 50 square feet is kind of pretty much behind the center building, why not push the other two buildings back to where they're in the setback, so the left and the right building, the north and the south buildings, and shrink a little bit more? I know you were telling us about that, but why not do that? Why not just push those back, have those in the setbacks, and either shrink or possibly come in front of the ZBA and say, hey, you know what, I only need it for this center building? That was my question,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah, I think, again, just I'm going from what the civil engineer is telling me, this is a fire access road, it's the minimum width permitted. And he's saying you want that to be straight if possible. So if these are 50 feet back and this one is not, you're creating this curving situation. If this was only for loading or for fire truck access, this situation will be different. But he's saying you're gonna have tenants parking their car, getting out, unloading, and you're having ramps. So these are, picture going up a ramp 3 feet high, so you kind of can't see, and then you're turning. They have standards for, you know, the civil engineering world that I don't. But that was kind of what he was saying, is we want to minimize that curving on that road. So his suggestion was keep all of the, he actually suggested, Dan, go to ZBA and ask for 15 feet. Just keep all the
Even
buildings.
though you really needed less.
No, I needed
Fine.
15, and that's where I gave up the 5 in the middle. That's why I'm asking for 10. So his suggestion was, Dan,
Well,
keep
really
everything.
9, you said 9,
Nine,
right?
it
Okay,
dimensioned
gotcha.
out to 9 in AutoCAD.
Gotcha.
So he said, just go ask, we need 15, go ask for 15, keep everything the same. And I said, I don't feel comfortable asking them without compromising something up front.
Okay.
So I said, well, how much can we shrink that building before this curving road becomes an issue? And he said, I would go 5 feet at the most. That's where that came from.
Last question, I
Yeah.
promise. Okay, let's assume it was possible to move the north and the south building back and still keep your road straight in the back. I understand that's important for emergency vehicles and stuff. You mentioned earlier when you were talking, you were kind of explaining it to us, rather than, yeah, you could have just said, I'm gonna shrink this middle building down, but there's financial considerations. What exactly did you mean by that, sir?
So yeah, we have the target square foot area, gross square foot area, has been 40,000 square feet. That's coming from the feasibility study that we conducted. essentially, if you look at the numbers, if the development is any smaller than that, then it's not gonna be financially successful. So 40,000 square feet has been the target. We started at 50, because we were out here, and then we learned about this easement here. We had more building over here, we learned about the septic system here. So we have continued to shrink as much as it makes sense.
But basically, that's the biggest reason is financial base, where you couldn't tighten up that middle guy a little bit more.
It's part of it. I'm not sure it's the biggest reason, but yeah, I mean, it's
Part of it.
It's for sure. I mean, and I think you're gonna run into that in any sort of new commercial development, is there's always gonna be a financial implication.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Thank you very, very much. Follow-up questions, do you have any follow-up questions?
Absolutely.
All right. At this time, I would like to ask if there's anybody here to speak in favor of this application.
Wasn't there an email or something that came through?
Oh, 1 second. Yes, ma'am. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Julia, this 150 Whiskey Road.
Yes, ma'am.
I just think it's, if he has a space to work with without disturbing the wetlands, he should. And he's not asking for whatever the civil engineer suggested, which is 15 feet. He's only asking for 9, which is the minimum. I think he should be fine.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Yes, sir, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, was there an email or something that you were reading earlier under the wrong file?
No, what was the one?
I don't have anything.
You started reading.
Well,
reading
I
something
had,
else?
yeah, I had a little email that I just asked a question of the land use office.
Oh, okay.
If you want. Yeah, I don't.
Was there a Souza in favor of it or something?
No, that
I
was,
don't
was a
remember
different-
seeing one on that.
That was for Pocono, yeah.
Entirely
Oh,
from
oh,
a
okay.
previous meeting.
Okay,
yeah, it was in the wrong file, for Pocono Road.
gotcha. So there's more than one site on Pocono Road, who'd have thought?
It's somewhere in this mess. But,
It's up there.
you see it?
It wasn't for 81.
It was for 81. That was the one I mixed up and put in the other one. No, it's not. But it was kind of my email on a question.
Oh, you're
That
talking
had been
about
up,
that?
well, basically the email that I had, and we're still open here, was 81, your address got basically upzoned into 2018, right? Rewrite.
2018 December.
Yeah, it used to be that C1 zone used to be all the left side or the west side of the road.
Yep.
And then they basically, in 2018, increased it back to the railroad tracks, you know,
Yep.
that's behind your place. That's when they made the change. I
Understood.
just verified that at
Okay,
town hall
gotcha,
when it-
yep.
when it was upzoned.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you, sir. All right, is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this application?
Well,
Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Rich Hagley, 101 Pocono Road.
Yes, sir.
What is the proposed structure? I got a letter to show up here.
It's gotta go,
You want?
you may answer, sir.
Sure, it's a proposed self-storage development.
Okay, is there hours of operation, or is this 24 hours?
It's not gonna be 24/7, no.
Okay.
I haven't I don't have zoning approval yet, but, so I don't have business hours, but it will be typical business hours.
Okay, and you said it's 40,000 square feet,
Correct, give or take, yeah.
give or take. So
Yes.
what's the basic footprint of that?
Sure. I know, I apologize, my back is to the
No,
entire
no, it's
time.
okay. You can look at it, sir.
Yeah.
Please feel free.
So, that's a good question. So this is what we had submitted to the inland wetlands, but this is what we're. So these are 130 by 50, and what we've been talking about is shrinking this middle one, 130 by 45. And so your property is two properties, no, sorry, your property's right here.
Right next door, yeah.
Yep. And so the entrance to the development would be down here.
Okay, that's away from you now.
Yeah, and in terms of elevation, you're about 20 feet higher, so that's why we have this retaining wall. So you're quite a bit higher than this entire development, which has been a challenge for us, but.
So this one, they're all 130 feet?
Yep, this one's 130, and then there's this little bump out here that's 60,
Okay.
okay? And the concept is, just so you kind of know what it would look like. The super rough rendering of something that it might look like. So we're not talking storage sheds, we're talking, you know, this is New England, this is Brookfield, Connecticut. And then, I don't know if you caught on to what I was talking about, but it's a two-story, but it's built into a hill because of the grade.
Right.
So Pocono Road would be at this elevation, and you would drive around the back of the building to this bottom level.
Okay.
Sir, you were here to speak in favor of it, correct? Or, I'm about to ask it. Okay, you were here to see what's happening.
I just wanted to see what it was.
Okay.
The letter that I got it just said that there was a meeting. It didn't even say what the proposed structure was, nothing.
Okay. Are you number 88 by any chance? Directly across the street?
101.
Oh, 101, okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak in favor of the application? Hearing none. At this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone here that would like to speak in opposition to the application. Hearing none. You have the concluding remarks, sir.
Sure, yeah. So at the back of the ZBA application, there's a set of criteria that this board uses in determining a vote, essentially. So I just kind of wanted to go through each bullet point. I'll do it super quick. I know I've been yapping for.
You're talking about the hardship, sir?
Just these 8 items that are taken into consideration by the board. So I have to demonstrate that the exceptional shape, size, topography, or other unique characteristics of the site requires a variance. I think that we've done that. I think it's an incredibly tough site between grade, between wetlands, between easements. And again, number 2, the exceptional difficulty or hardship shall not have been created by the owner or myself requesting. We didn't do any of that. It was like that. I do not believe it will negatively affect the neighborhood. We're proposing a relatively short, kind of high-end building. There's landscape screening. We're not asking to go 10 feet from the road from 50. So I think it'll be a nice addition to the neighborhood, not a detriment. It's all zoned for that application, for that use. We're not asking for any other change in use. The application shall be for the least number of variances possible. I think we've demonstrated that. I'm not asking for anything except this 9 feet in the front of the development. We have explored all reasonable alternatives. Number 7, I don't really know what this means, but no variance to the zoning regs shall be granted that is conditioned on an approval by another board or commission. I'm not sure if that applies to me or not. I don't know how to interpret that, but I don't think.
It does.
Okay.
But we can speak about that.
Well, it doesn't apply to this. Well,
Wetlands.
Well, it
Yeah.
doesn't, I mean, does it? No, I guess it doesn't.
But it wasn't a
That's
quid
something we can
pro
talk
quo.
about in discussion.
Okay.
Yes, sir, keep going.
And then,
Sorry to interrupt.
it is, no variance shall be granted that will continue or expand a non-conforming use. We are not non-conforming, so that's it.
Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. All right, does anybody have any certain questions? There's one thing I just want to clear up on. Sir, could you just explain the letter, I guess the letter not going out to 88, which is directly across the street from you, but it's a brother situation with 101. Could you mind explaining that for the record?
Yeah,
sir?
my understanding was I had to notify the abutting properties. So 101, the Maybrook Railroad, I forget the name of the southern property, are the abutting properties. And then Brookfield, the town of Brookfield owns Pocono Road. I didn't think I needed to notify them. So I notified 101, Maybrook Railroad Company, and the property to the south.
Franny, you mind if I ask you a question? And I could pull it up on the GIS, but 88 is directly across the street.
He doesn't abut the property though.
Doesn't abut it? I thought it was within an X amount of feet.
The regs, I think the regs say abut.
Just want to double check that, just for the record.
Plus your driveway is gonna be right there.
Number 88 is owned by Walter E. Hagley. It's a single-family home. Do you mind if it's just a follow-up question, you mind if I pull it up on the GIS, sir?
Sure, yeah.
Unless that there was still a building on the property that I think was removed, I'm guessing in the past few years.
Oh, on the
There
other side.
was a house at some point, yep. But yeah, that's 88.
Yeah, that's the one I was wondering, because I did not see that under notification.
Yeah, my interpretation was the abutting properties, and that's not directly abutting.
I know it says abutting, but I thought there was a footage. I don't know. It's common sense to me, I said, notified a guy across the street when I first looked at it, you know?
I don't know, I don't know the regulation off the top of my head.
That's why we have Mr. Valley here. Sorry, I just.
Oh, no worries,
just
no,
wanted to
yeah, I
double
mean,
check that
I-
for the record before we close the
Sure.
public hearing, sir. So you notified, sir, 101 Pocono, 71 Pocono. Is that 1 Federal Road? Those are the 3 notifications that you made. I'm just looking at your application. Only, I have it here if you want to look at it. That's what I see for the 3 notifications.
I notified 101 Pocono Road,
Yeah. 71
71
Pocono,
Pocono Road.
and 1 Federal Road, rear.
Yes, and they're, I'm sorry, yeah, I got confused because they were a P.O. Box mailing address. But yes, 1 Federal Road, which is the Maybrook Railroad Company.
Okay.
I'm trying to find it.
No
Sorry.
problem.
Yeah, if we need to continue the public hearing.
For some reason, it wasn't passed. And if we're not sure or need even to, you know, ask the attorney on it, if we're not sure in a regulation or something like that, us commissioners, if it's okay with him, we're okay with continuing it if we had to, continuing the public hearing part before we close it. Fran?
Notice of requirements. When a public hearing is required by these regulations, as scheduled by the commission, the board, the land use department shall cause notice hearing to be published in the newspaper having substantial circulation in Brookfield. No such notice shall be published at least twice in intervals of not less than 2 days, the first notice in 15 days, nor less the last 10 days, in the last, not less 2 days before the date of the hearing. For a personal notice to property owners, when required by these regulations, the applicant shall by certificate of mailing notify owners of the property within 100 feet of the subject property, including all owners of condominiums, units on both an adjacent and subject property,
So it's 100 feet.
whether inside or outside Brookfield, of a pending application by mailing at least 15 days prior to the scheduled hearing. So,
I thought there was a footage on there. They weren't notified.
So in that case, do they need to be notified? in that case?
Legally, technically, 88 would have to be notified, right, Fran? That's
Yeah,
definitely
legally.
within 100.
yeah.
The road's 30 feet
So I need to
wide.
notify the town of Brookfield Fire Department and whatever that 4.82.
Yeah, it's the, see this one right here, number 88?
Yeah.
Does he have to notify?
But I'm saying that those are technically, so we're gonna go.
Well,
on-
100, I did check today, I called in earlier, once you notify or do your paperwork through town hall, that's good enough for town hall and
Okay.
the fire department, I double checked with that.
Gotcha.
So that's, you don't have to notify.
So I technically need 82 and 88.
If it's within 100, yeah, I would
Yeah.
say, I would say both. So 82, 88, let me zoom this out a little bit.
Is that only from anyone around, like, the actual property?
From
Yeah,
his-
that's how I get it.
From his box. So I would consider, 100 feet is here. We'd have to get the scale out and look at it. So I would say it's here, it's here. That, he doesn't have to do anything, 101 obviously. 103 is probably way too far away, don't have to worry about it, right?
Yeah, no.
So it's really, sir, it's 80, 88 and 82.
Okay.
Would you like the opportunity? We're willing to continue it to the next meeting if we had to, before you serve, but it's up to you.
What will be the alternative?
We'd have to continue and keep the public hearing open on this,
Okay. As
so that
opposed
they
to
could have adequate legal notification, right?
Yeah, well.
We'd have to do it now
that's-
before we close
yeah,
the
well,
public hearing.
Would that suffice, Fran, if he just contacts?
We'll have to do it by
Yeah.
mailing. that's
Yeah,
all.
if you did it, if you did the
Right,
legal
and
mailing
so-
to those two
Yeah,
before our
hey,
next
if
meeting.
you wanna- yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm
that
gonna
way those
certificate
people have the
mail.
opportunity, if they wanna come and say something, they can, or write a letter, or an email or something.
Yeah.
No, you have to notify those two
Just-
properties.
Okay, so I notify them, come back at the next meeting, we have a continuation if they
If they,
Yeah.
wish to.
Yeah, and we'll start off basically right where we are now, continue the public hearing.
Okay,
if they wanna say anything, they can.
Yeah, if they wanna say anything, they can, or if
Otherwise-
they send something in, we'll read it into the record for you, sir.
at the next meeting, if there's 5 board members, how does that impact what we've done?
You'll have fun.
Well, they,
But I signed something saying
Well-
that we're good with
Oh,
4. How does
well-
that-
they weren't there for the presentation.
Yeah, if they weren't there for the last one, it would be us 4 again.
Yeah,
Right?
4.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand the process.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
that
that's-
makes perfect sense.
Yes.
I'd like to continue then if that's okay,
Yeah.
until next meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'll take a motion to continue Z-24-16 until, it's May what?
6th?
May 6th, thank you, Commissioner. I'll take a motion to continue Z-24-16, and that is 81 Pocono Road until the next meeting on May 6th.
So move.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Who seconded really quick? I'm sorry.
Richard.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, want to put that out to the side. All right. So what we're going to do now, I'll explain to everybody, is we're going to go into closed deliberations. We basically discuss amongst ourselves, come to a decision, and we vote on it, but it's just us speaking during this time. Make sense? Okay. This one out here. All right. I will take a motion to approve Z-24-8, that is the James and Christina Delafield residence, 10 Forest Trail.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Oh, it's a tie. I don't know, you guess. All right, discussion.
Well, it's a pre-existing non-conforming building, the hardship, I mean, there's multiple hardships, specifically for this, the hardship is the pre-existing nature of it, it's too close to the front property line to add anything, so, and as the applicant said, it was a safety issue to not have any sort of shielding there. I know we discussed a little bit about possibly 4 or 6 feet.
He was
They-
comfortable with 4, the architect said 6.
Right, so, I mean, in this case, I do kind of default to the architect. I know the applicant said, well, 4 might be okay, but the applicant is not an architect. And so just because he says, well, I'd be fine with 4, doesn't mean the architect's gonna say he can actually do it. There might be certain factors regarding how steep, if there's steps up to his house, how steep the steps have to be and whatnot. So in that case, I don't think it makes a huge ton of difference to fight him over those,
4, 5, or 6.
those 2 feet.
Yeah, I mean, to argue about 2 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, the basic issue is whether you
Yeah.
accept the idea that any modification, because it's a non-conforming structure.
Already, he's at 27 feet
Though,
already.
I do want to check with Fran on this one because I don't know if the application is actually for 6 feet on 10 Forest Trail, because the house is pre-existing and they list the present dimension as 27 feet out of
Yeah,
30.
that's-
So what they're really asking for is 9 feet. it's supposed to be 30, and they need it at 21, which would be a 9-foot variance, not a. It's 6 feet from where the house is now, but the house is already 3 feet too close. So it
So,
actually-
so if we granted a variance and we did this, it would put that into conforming kind of? Is that what you're
No,
thinking?
no, I'm saying I think we need to grant them a 9-foot from the front property line variance, because a 6-foot from the front property line variance would only give them,
No, not a 6 foot from it, 6
well,
foot,
6 foot.
6 foot is what they're looking for.
They're looking for 6 feet from the front of the house,
they'd
but
be
the house is
looking-
already 3 feet too close, so
But is
isn't that a
on-
9
Is that on that
foot?
side or the other side?
No, it's going right out the front.
I mean, I know where the porch, what they're adding is, but is the, is the non-conforming feature of the setback?
My understanding was
Which side
that,
of the house?
my understanding was
Yeah.
that from the front of the house here to
Right.
the road was only 27.
That's my understanding as well.
My understanding was that from the front of the house to this road was 27 feet.
Yeah, it's that little space.
When it needs to be 30.
Does that sound right, Fran?
Oh,
Carl,
yes,
just,
yeah.
man, it makes perfect sense to me.
I thought it was back here.
It might be, I could be
No,
wrong.
I actually,
That was,
hold on,
I
I
might
drew,
have
I
mis-
think I drew a map.
I might have misinterpreted
Down on
that.
actually drawn a map?
I mean, I vaguely remember that from the last time.
Yeah, I might be misinterpreting that, but that was my understanding.
The present dimension of the house.
Is it 27 feet? Ah, he's got it, he's got it, he's got it right there.
I got about probably 26 to 27 feet.
We'll call it 27.
Okay. He wants to bump it out to, let's see.
He went to 21 feet,
Yeah, I got 20, so,
so that would be a 7 foot, not a
Well,
6.
but but my question is it's not a 7, it's technically a 10
Because it's supposed to be 30?
it's supposed to be 30. So to say, hey, I need a setback of only 20, it's requesting variance.
Would
of
that be
10.
confusing if we were to approve it and we said it Carl's way versus the way it's on here? I don't know if somebody would.
I just didn't know if the application was clear enough, because
because I know on the right side, he's got it at 20, what, 27 or
Yeah.
present dimension? is
he says the present
27.
dimension's 27,
That's
and he's
the
asking
present.
for 6 feet on that. He's
Right.
not asking for 6 feet on the
Right, so he wants to be
lot,
down at 21.
which is a 9-foot variance,
9
not a
foot
6
variance.
variance.
21 is 9 to 30.
And what's it, but we have it advertised at what?
You did it,
What the legal notice states.
no, I'd have to look at the legal notice.
It's 6 foot. The
6
wall
foot.
that was done here, it's a 6 feet
6 foot,
structure.
yeah.
It's,
So,
If it was advertised that way, we'd have to
yeah, you can't.
re-advertise it again.
Yeah.
yeah.
If it was put in that way, let's say we did it the way the vice chairman was talking about, and it was, and we approved at this one, we couldn't just write the number down, now that would be too confusing, right? It's gotta be what it is. It's gotta be whatever it is. If we did it based, what if we did it based on this application, that the present dimension is 27, so we get 6, and we notated that we're supposed to have the 30, so it's really 9. Yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah.
It's confusing. I don't know, what's the best way to handle that, Fran?
Well, it seems to me that what they're requesting is 6, because the existing property is already 3, that's part of the non, right? So,
Yeah, if we stated in the hardships, the pre-existing non-conforming, would that be okay, sufficient? If we were to agree and give it the 6, and we stated it was one of
The
the
current
hardships was.
condition is pre-existing.
Yeah, the current condition is a pre-existing non-conforming, would that fly? Does that sound right?
No.
No.
I mean, it seems to me you can't use the fact that it's being non-conforming to approve a further non-conforming move.
Yeah.
So I think you'd have to have another basis, it seems to me, for the hardship.
We have to re-advertise this and change the number, basically. Is that what you're thinking?
I don't know the technicality on it, but.
What's the
yeah,
technicality?
It would have to be re-advertised.
Have to be re-advertised,
We'll continue to the next meeting.
and then they'd have to resubmit another application with the right number.
Right number on it.
So we're better off going through and what? Basically denying it.
Without,
Is it- Yeah, without prejudice,
Just deny without prejudice, and then I'll have to resubmit.
yeah.
unless we want to also discuss the merits here of if we would approve it had it been correct, then if if people aren't in support of the application.
Well, I only had one question on what you were mentioning, where he said that he could go make it a little bit smaller, you know, you were talking about the
Yeah,
4,
yeah.
5, or 6 feet. The architect said, hey, 6 feet. But he did, I mean, the applicant did say before he left, he said, you know, I mentioned 4 or 5, and he said, basically said he'd be okay with that. So,
Right.
the only thing that I would even consider, but I can go either way. If you said, leave it at 6, and it happens to go to the 9 or whatever on the other one, I'm okay with that, that's what I'm saying.
Right, okay.
But I'm also okay with shrinking it. But I'm okay with it because I do see the hardship, safety is a hardship.
Yeah.
I believe he also has, I mean, he really has 3 front yards on the property. I understand why they have the zoning regulation there in the first place, to have a nice setback from the road, somebody falls asleep or something, they don't drive into the guy's house. You know, you gotta have some distance there. So I think there's a little give and take. I'm okay with it really either way. If you said, if they came back and it was 9, or he said, hey, I'm okay with 8,
Right,
see the
but in either
hardships.
case, it'll have to be resubmitted because it's not.
How do you feel about it?
The thing that jumped out to me, I know Mr. Vice Chair, you mentioned about ADA requirements, and if that could get a little sticky, if they need to have a certain amount of space and.
4 feet's minimum.
4 feet's the minimum?
Yeah, for a, right, isn't it 48 for a wheelchair, Fran, I think 88?
Is it 36 or 48?
But 36 just to squeeze through a doorway.
Yeah.
But if you're on a.
Wait,
But I think we went down this road before, and we want to stay away from the ADA.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, with the previous,
Is it wide enough
Application.
for usage?
right.
For common usage, is it wide enough?
Right.
4 feet's probably wide enough, 5 feet's better, 6 is great.
Yeah, well, my question was also on like the steepness of needing stairs.
I mean, 1
Like-
versus now.
Well, the narrower it is, the steeper your staircase has to be to accommodate it.
I'm okay with it either way. How do you feel?
I feel the same way. I'm not too concerned. I think the hardships are genuine that he stated.
How do you feel?
I mean, I'm favorably disposed toward it. I guess it's really kind of a technical question about whether it has to be republished or not.
It technically has to, right? Yeah, we would have to deny it without prejudice.
Yeah.
So we could just
Right.
basically advertise and then resubmit it correctly.
Mhm, mhm,
That's what it looks like to me.
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay? Everybody ready to vote? You wanna make a motion to, I'll make a motion to, I have to motion that. It's that
motion to
motion, right?
approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, and
Yeah.
then we vote and we'd say.
Yeah.
And we
Second,
say
all in
without-
favor?
We'd say without prejudice,
Yes.
okay. I already have the motion to approve.
Yeah, so.
All those in favor to approve, say aye. All those in favor to disapprove without prejudice, say nay. Nay,
Nay.
is that correct? Sound
Yeah,
good?
yeah.
Close enough?
Good enough.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, they're gone. That was tricky. Man, I didn't even catch that, you caught that, huh?
I was just, I didn't catch it at first, just when I was looking at it again.
Okay. And our last application, all right. I will take a motion to approve Z-24-14, that is Mr. and Mrs. Franklin Alvarez residence, and that's 50 Wisconsin Road. And R80 zone, so required dimension would be 50 feet, proposed dimension is 40. The variance requested, which is for really a second floor, would be 10 feet, and that is Article 3.5. Have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All right, discussion. Mr. Secretary.
I have trouble with this non-conforming lot issue generally, because following the regulations, as the fellow read before, it would seem, if you followed them strictly, that you could do virtually nothing to a non-conforming piece of property, because the regulation you read said you can't extend, you can't do anything to it, but that seems like a really counterproductive notion, because the property still sort of stays frozen in time.
There's also citations in, like 8.5 or 8.6 that say, people have to have reasonable use. You can't deny them any use, of a property. They have to have reasonable use. But there's other things we have to follow too. I understand what you're saying. How do you feel?
Yeah, I agree with Richard. I think, I mean, this one is not, unlike the discussion that we were just having, this one is not expanding on.
They're not going out towards the front road,
Right,
right?
it is, yeah, granted, it is changing and non-conforming, but not really to make it non-conforming per se. It was 10 feet non-conforming and it's still 10 feet non-conforming. It's not expanding on the
increase the
non-conformity, we're
non-conformity.
building up. It's,
There's no intensification.
right, the non-conforming amount stays
Yeah.
the same. So I think that's what makes a difference here.
We had another application in front of us that was somewhat similar. It was on Candle Lake Road, probably a year and a half ago, which I just thought of it. There was a guy, he was 5 foot over, and he wanted to put a second story on his house.
Mhm.
And one of the neighbors in the back came and said, oh, it's gonna block my view, I think, of the lake or something like that. We ended up approving that. It was already pre-existing non-conforming, it was like 5 feet at that time over, but he was just trying to put a second floor on that. So there, at least as far back as I can remember, there's a precedence for it.
Yeah.
I don't think you were here at that time, but that was something that happened, that was like a year and a half ago. You vaguely remember that one?
Yeah, vaguely, I remember, yeah.
I just thought of
Yeah.
it when the secretary was bringing that up. How do you feel, sir?
As you do, Mr. Sherman, I feel like the residents had properly stated that, it is a non-conforming property, and, they're not expanding on anything. They're building upward, not outward. It seemed fairly reasonable on those yards.
I think I'm okay with it. I went out and I looked at the property, and the biggest thing that I wanted to check was how far was it from the road, And it's 62 feet back from the road, so it's not like something's gonna be obtrusive. And then I drove the neighborhood. It definitely is in line. There's other 2 stories around there in the neighborhood too. The pre-existing non-conforming, I think also really their septic system, because they're working on it. And like even if they wanted to make more room or add on to the house, they're not going backwards on that house. Because there's a whole new, they're in the middle of doing, with Mr. Avery, they're in the middle of doing the testing of the soil. And they're designing basically a whole new septic system, and it is a long backyard in the back, so whatever, if they add on to it, they're gonna need that as a B100, as a reserve. So I don't think they can't really go backwards on the house. I think it's shielded. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because of the pre-existing non-conforming. And I really think that the septic it limits, you can't go that way.
Right.
I think that's an issue on the property as well.
So that's another hardship, is the.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm good with it. I'm good with it, if you guys agree. You okay? Everybody ready to vote?
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor of approving Z-24-14, and that is Mr. and Mrs. Franklin Alvarez residence. And that is a proposed dimension, required dimension, 50 feet. Proposed dimension of 40 feet, that would be a 10-foot, and I'm gonna say it the way they spoke about it, Fran. It's a 10-foot variance request for a second floor adding on, and that's Article 3.5. Say aye. Aye. All right, that's 4 ayes, and that is unanimous. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tk you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Sorry to stay here until the end. We won't let you.
No, that's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a very good evening.
You too.
Okay, moving on. Old business, there's none. New business, there's none. Table items, there is none. Informal discussion, I put this one on there and I spoke to the vice chairman about it. I just had an open discussion. It was mainly for our newest member here. If anybody feels that there's any, and I know we have some quick links, on our website where people can do additional training, look at really the legal cases. The ones by Lisa I thought were phenomenal, outstanding. Did you watch those yet?
I got to kind of skim through
Oh,
that.
you got to skim through them? Okay. I just put it on there to see if anybody felt that they needed any other kind of training or something that I could bring up, add, throw it in if we have time? Yes, sir. On anything, anything at all. State of Connecticut, court cases, septics, wetlands, man, I could use some on wetlands. I'm learning though.
I can tell you.
You've been to a lot of the meetings.
What I need in the moment is remedial help on being the secretary.
And more than like 3 seconds notice?
And this is something that I'm bad at to begin with, and so I'm gonna be like stumbling in the dark.
I think you did a great job, Mr. Secretary.
You don't know yet. That's actually what come out of this.
Okay, if anybody thinks or comes up with anything, email me, let me know, and I'll do my due diligence to try to get additional training if anybody wants. I know how everybody loves the additional training.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more we can all always learn, but I can't think of any particular.
Yeah, there's court
area
cases
that-
out there. I'd like to
Yeah.
get,
Yeah,
some related court cases, more of them.
was great about having Lisa here. She was always ready with that.
Maybe we could drag somebody back.
I don't know
And
about
see.
that.
Okay, anybody have any other informal discussion?
No, sir.
The only thing I'm sort of mulling over this issue of hardship and what constitutes a hardship, and this concept that the hardship has to be with the property. But at the same
Unique.
time,
The uniqueness and stuff.
but at the same time, it's very difficult to separate the property from the person in some ways. And so how do you, how do you sort of make a judgment about that? I mean, in some cases, it seems fairly clear that, it's a kind of personal discretion, somebody wants something, and there isn't an inherent difficulty with the property that warrants it. And in other cases, it sort of feels a little more marginal.
I know exactly what you're saying, and, sometimes I feel exactly the same way. The way I did it was reading the legal cases, basically under the ZBA, and all the statutes, and then it's basically got all the other legal cases that came in front of it. So, and they were all, it's the land, it's unique to the land.
Yeah.
It can't be this, it can be this, it can't be that, it can't be that. That's kind of how I sort of separate or attempt to try to.
But
like this.
this particular case about the porch, it's you could argue there's a hardship in the northwest facing feature of the property. It's already non-conforming, so it limits what can be done. Any addition will add to that. So but it isn't exactly a hardship of the land. And on the other hand.
But safety is, if you look at the legal citations, safety's in there.
Yeah,
People
so
use it.
safety may be
It's a hardship of not the land itself, but the structure that's on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the structure.
You could say.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's the great question, and it's also why you have a ZBA.
That's why you have a
If it was so
ZBA.
cut and dry,
That's
and
right.
if there was no ambiguity in it, you wouldn't need a board to vote on it.
Right.
So I don't think we're gonna solve that
Yeah, no, it's
dilemma
true.
here.
Randy, you have any input on that?
None
We'll
whatsoever.
separate. Thank you, sir. Do you have anything else? Any other informal discussion?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to take a motion to close and adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.